And we're RockSim Live. Hi, my name is Tim Van Milligan. I'm your host here at RockSim Live. And what RockSim Live is about is answering your questions about how to use the RockSim software. If you're new to RockSim, I can show you where you can find it. Let me change here to my screen. So if you go to the Apogee website, and our web address is apogeerockets.com, and you can go to shop and go over here to Rocket Software, and right here where you will find RockSim, and this is where you can load it or order it. There should also be links here to try the demo. So here's the download the free 30-day trial. And there are free tutorials. Learn how to use RockSim, which is right here. This will take you to our some video tutorials page. Our RockSim live videos are also great, and those are available for download as well. To get to those, go to the How To and Guide menu right here. Then go to Software. And then go here to RockSim Live Training. And this will give you our previous videos. And the nice thing about this is that we've also gone and put timestamps on these videos for various topics. So if you wanted to find out about mass object, for example, you would come to this page, and then on your keyboard, on your computer, do a Control F, or on a Mac it's Command F, and you'll see that it brings up this little search bar here at the top, and then you can just type in a topic. So like we said, mass object. We found mass object. There's nothing found, but there is something called mass, and you can scroll through those, and here's the mass. It says, does RockSim account for changing mass of a motor? And then you can just go to this video, and at 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 35 seconds, you would find your answer. So I am live, so I am looking over here at my monitor. I have chats going on. We have a whole bunch of people watching right now. Hello, Joe Noble. Hello, Gary Martinez. Michael O'Brien from Mesa. Gary Martinez from Louisiana, Mark Sell from Parker, Joe Noble from Littleton, Colorado. Cool. I do have some holdover questions from last week, so I can start with those. And if you have a question, go ahead and ask it in the chat, and I'll try to get to it as quickly as I can. And let's start with the first question. We had Alan White, and he asked, he's got a dual deployment rocket, and he wants to change it to single deploy, and is there a quick and easy way to do that in RockSim? So I'm going to open up RockSim right here, and I need a dual deployment rocket, so I'm going to go to my File Open button up here at the top. Click on that, and my RockSim files are stored in the RockSim application folder. So I need to go to my applications folder first. Let me do this, put it by alphabetical. Open this, and here is the design folder, which is inside the RockSim program folder. Open that, and I'm going to go to the Apogee kits. There's a whole bunch of kits in there, but I'm going to choose an Apogee, and I'm either looking for the Peregrine or the Katana, because I know that's a dual deployment kit. So here's the Katana. I'll open that up, and here is our rocket. And if you use your mouse on your, you can scroll and then click and drag, and you see the P, that stands for parachute, and there's two parachutes in this rocket. There's one here, and there's one down here. And let's set this up for dual deployment. So I'm going to go to prepare for launch. So this is kind of like if you've never used RockSim before and you want to run a simple simulation, that's kind of what I'm walking through right now. So you go to prepare for launch, which is this button up here, and it's kind of like the base of the rocket sitting on the launch pad. There's a couple of arrows pointing downwards towards the blast deflector, and that's the prepare for launch button. So we're going to click on that, and we need to choose a rocket engine. So I'm going to choose an engine from the database, and I'm going to change the diameter filter right here to show only the motors that match the diameter, because right now it's showing me a whole bunch and it's just like too many, and it's like making my mind go crazy. So then I need to just select a motor, and it doesn't really matter which one I'm going to choose. Let's choose a Cesaroni J210 Classic. Right now it's a plugged motor, and this is set up, to do dual deployment. You could use a plugged motor if you want. You can also choose a delay. If you want to change the delay, you can either just type in a number, or you can select custom. And a custom brings up this screen, and then I can set my delay just by clicking on the buttons. So right now I'll choose a 10-second delay. And then click OK, and the motor is loaded. And you can see that's down here and also up here. The motor is loaded. Now, for the parachutes, we go to the flight events. And we have two parachutes, a 48-inch parachute, and I assume this is the smaller one right here. For dual deployment, you would pop out the smaller one at Apogee. So from the event description, choose deploy at Apogee as your event. And then your 48-inch parachute, now this one you would choose to deploy at a specific altitude. And this is controlled by your altimeter, your electronics on board your rocket. So I'm going to choose an altitude, and let's say our altitude, right now it's in meters. So let's call it 150 meters. And let me see how else this is set up. So simulation controls, I just recommend that you leave that alone. Starting state, this is a little short for a big rocket, so I'm going to make this a 98-inch long launch rail, and we'll launch it straight up. And our altitude here is 83 meters. We have a steady wind at 8 miles an hour. And no thermals, so that's kind of the basic setup. That's kind of my go-to setup, except for my altitude. I'm not working in meters, and I can change that, and I'll just change that in a second. But let me go to the flight profile first to show you that it is set up for dual deployment. And it ran the simulation, and it brings up the flight profile screen. So here's the rocket down here on the launch pad. And then we click on the launch button, and the rocket is taking off. It's coasting upwards. Well, actually, I'm not seeing any smoke. I must have the smoke turned off. I'll show you how to turn that on too. It's coasting to the top now. I can kind of tell it's coasting. Let me, by the distance apart these dots are. These dots are laid down every second. So when the dots are getting further apart, the rocket is accelerating. When they get closer together, it's decelerating. And when it's the same distance apart, then you're at a constant rate. So right now we have a parachute deployed, and it's dropping. And what did I set? It was going to be altitude of 150 meters. The main parachute should come out. So we're at about 800 right now and dropping. And if you're impatient like I am, you can take the slider bar down here and just grab it and then slide it forward into time. And I'm looking to be about 150 meters. And right there. So the picture did not change, but if you look closely here, the dots are closer together and they're at a different angle, which means the rocket is coming down really slow. So this is characteristic of dual deployment, where you have the rocket falling fairly fast, and then the main parachute comes out and it falls really slow. And you get this dog leg bend right here in the middle. And then we can see that it landed really close to the pad, and that's the purpose of dual deployment, so you don't have to walk very far. And our current range at landing is about 91 meters away, about 300 feet, somewhere around there. So that worked. So now the question is, how can I change this into a single deployment simulation? And it's a really quick way to do it. So let's go back to prepare for launch. And we're going to go to flight events. And this time, you're just going to take your parachute and you'll see that there is one choice called no event. So basically, nothing is going to happen. I'm going to do that for the smaller parachute. Click on that and click flight profile. So nothing else has changed. I'm just saying take that small parachute and don't deploy it. But the main parachute now is still set to deploy at 150 meters, which is probably not a good idea because it's going to be, for single deployment, you're going to want to use the ejection charge of the rocket motor. So you would go here to deploy at maximum ejection delay, right up there. So that would be your choice for single deployment. And now we'll just go to the flight profile, run it again and see what happens. Okay, so here's again our rocket down at the pad, and I'm going to, okay, I'll go ahead and, oops, I'm going to stop. I want to give you some smoke. So to get smoke, come here to preferences down here, and then come over here to smoke effects in your display. And now we'll say show the smoke. And if it's a multi-stage rocket, you might want to make your smoke colors different so you can tell them apart. And let's click OK. And then relaunch it. Okay, so now we're seeing some smoke. And right there, the motor cut off. And now it's coasting. It's coming over the top. Getting there. At 10 seconds, the parachute pops out. Now this is our big parachute, so it's going to take a long time to descend. So I'm grabbing the slider bar here with my cursor and bringing it all the way back down to the ground. And you can see now at a single deployment, we're landing 508 meters away. So now we're going for a real long walk. And so this is single deployment, and the first one was dual deployment, and you can see the advantage of using dual deployment because your walking is a lot closer, and there's less likelihood of losing the rocket because the further it goes away, it can go behind things that you don't see. They're obscured from your view. So that is the purpose of dual deployment and how to change from a dual deployment to a single deployment in RockSim really quick. So that only took us like 20 seconds. And most of that was just me talking. Let me check my chat over here and see if we've got some questions. Mark Sell says, looking for a method to put an electronic sled inside a nose cone using centering rings. Oh, that's a tough question. Kevin's Models and More says, not simulated, but can you talk a little bit about that Zephyr Jr. on your desk? Hadn't seen that before. So he's talking about this rocket right here. Let me go to my main screen. So the Zephyr Jr., this is a smaller version of our big Zephyr. Our big Zephyr is 4 inches in diameter, and I don't know how long it is, but it's pretty long. This is the Zephyr Jr. This is the smaller version. This one just came out. We released it on Tuesday. So it is available right now if you really need it. You'll also see behind me we have a poster of the Zephyr Jr. and I'm going to give that away, and I've already gone ahead and signed the bottom of it. So one lucky viewer that is currently live here today will get this. And if you're watching this on replay, that's why you want to show up to the live event, because we give stuff away. We encourage people to show up and we reward them. We can't do everybody, but somebody's going to get that poster today. I just have to figure out who's going to get it. So let's go to Mark Sell's question. I still got one more question from Carlos Kaminsky, he actually wrote something fairly similar to what Marcel wrote about creating a sled inside of a nose cone using centering rings. Okay, so we can probably take the katana here and we can modify it. So what we need to do is he wants to put centering rings inside of this nose cone, and then he wants to put an eBay sled in there. So let's start with the centering ring. So we're going to go to the Rocket Design Components tab up here on the top. We're going to click on that. We're going to click on the nose cone, and you can see it highlighted the nose cone down here. But as you come over here to the components, you'll see that you can't click on a centering ring to add a centering ring inside the nose cone. So here's a little cheat. Oops, you're not seeing my screen. Okay, so what I did was I came over here to the Rocket Design Components tab. We're looking at the katana. And I clicked on the nose cone, and you can see the centering ring button, which is right here, is not activated. So I can't add a centering ring inside the nose cone. So here's the cheat that I'm going to do. I'm going to click on the body tube here, this body tube, and now you can see that I can click on the centering ring. So I'm going to click on a centering ring here, and it brings up the database of centering rings, and I'm just going to cancel out of that. So right now, hopefully you can see this thin pink line right here. That's my centering ring, and it's inside the tube. It's not inside the nose cone. Let's give it some thickness here to start with. So I'm going to make it a 1/4 inch thick. So now it's a little bit wider so you can see it, and then I'll zoom in. So there's my centering ring. Now I'm going to change the location of that centering ring. And you can see my slider bar here only allows me to slide it backwards. I need it to go forwards. So I'm just going to come over here to the location, and I'm going to type in a negative number. So let's try 15 inches, minus 15 inches, and then you can hit the tab key, and sure enough, it put that centering ring 15 inches in right there, and now I can drag the slider bar. So now I can put it in a position that's more appropriate. So let's say it would be right there, but now my outside diameter of that ring is too big, so I'm going to uncheck this. So right now RockSim is trying to auto-calculate the diameters of the ring, the inside and outside diameter, but it's based off of the tube back here because that's where it's being attached. So I'm going to change the name of this. So I'm going to call this the forward nose cone centering ring. And now I have to uncheck this auto-calculate. So when I do that, nothing changed, but now I can change the outside diameter. And I'm just going to tweak it down a little bit. You can see I made it a little bit smaller than the outside surface of the nose cone. And the reason I did that is because I assume that the nose cone is going to have a wall thickness inside of it. So that's my first centering ring. I'm going to change the material to plywood. So I'm just looking for a plywood. Doesn't matter for right now. So it's a centering ring right there. And I'm going to click OK. So you can see it's right here in our nose cone. And I'm going to make another centering ring. I can do that same process, or what I can do is a copy paste. And I'm lazy, so I'm going to do a copy paste. So I'm going to click on the forward nose cone centering ring, and I can go up here to the edit menu and do a copy. Or the alternate way is use your mouse, and when you do a right click with your mouse, it brings up this little menu screen right here, and you can also do a copy right there. And then you have to paste it, and again, I can't paste it into this nose cone. It didn't allow me to do that, but I can paste it into the body tube. So I'm going to right click on that and say paste. And you can see now there's two nose cone centering rings, and they're right on top of each other because I copied it, so it's identical. So I'm going to edit the bottom one, double click on it, and I'm going to call this the aft nose cone centering ring. And now I'm going to change the location. So I'm just going to grab that slider and I'm just going to slide it back. And you'll probably put it closer to the rear of the shoulder. So right here is the shoulder of the nose cone, this rectangle here. And now I'm going to have to adjust my diameter again, make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now it's a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll change the color. I'll change it to an orange color. Okay, change the name. Everything else looks good. And we'll click OK. Now, one of the things I always like to do occasionally is to save things, just in case. I'm going to do a save as because I don't want to overwrite my current katana. I'm just going to put it on the desktop. Katana with eBay in nose. And I'm just going to save it there. Let me grab a drink of water. Okay, so here's our second centering ring. Here's the first one. So now we got to put in a sled. And this is the hard part. And this is also a question that Carlos Kaminsky had. He wanted to put a similar type of flat piece of wood inside of his rocket to kind of divide the inside of his rocket in half so that the ejection charge goes on one side and he could put electronics or something delicate on the other side. I've done this a lot in various rockets. One of the rockets that I did it in was the Lock Terrier Sandhawk. So I'm going to the Apogee webpage and I'm going to do a search for the word Terrier. It brings up this. And this kit up here in the top, I created a flat plate, and on one side of it I put the eBay, and on the other side was the ejection charge. Let's see if I have a picture of it. So this is a picture of the eBay, and this brown thing back here, this piece of wood, was my separator. Let me see if there's another photo of it. I'm just clicking through here. Okay, so this shows, here's the motor tube, and on the top side we have the eBay, and on the bottom side it's open so that the ejection charge can go around the eBay. So that's what Mark, I think, is trying to do. He's trying to do something similar. Carlos and Mark Sell wants to put a flat plate inside the nose cone to mount his electronics as his eBay sled. This is the hard part because RockSim doesn't have any item here called eBay sled or flat plate or anything that you can put inside of it. Now, if the rocket, for Carlos Kaminsky's case, one thing that you might be able to do is to take a fin and create a through-the-wall tab and extend that tab forward. So let me do that. I'll just show you what it might look like. So I'm going to make a fin, and I'm going to attach that fin to that other body tube. So I created a new fin, so ignore this one right here at the back. So here is this new fin, and what I was saying is we're going to go make it a through-the-wall tab. So first I'm going to make it just one fin so we don't have multiple fins showing up. And then I'm going to change the semi-span so it's not so big. I'm going to make it like really small. And I'm going to make it like 0.01 inches. So if you look at it, it's just this thin little plate right there. And it's green color. Let me change the color so we can see it a little bit better. So I'll make it red. Okay, so you see that red line right there? That's my fin. You know, if I make it bigger, it'll pop out. but let me change it back to 0.01. Okay, so now I'll go over here to the through the wall fin mount, and let's do a tab depth. I know on this particular rocket it's a 4-inch diameter tube, so I'm going to be pretty close to 4 inches. So I'll make it 3.9 inches, and let's make the length of the tab. So once I change this length, you'll see it start showing up. So there is a plate, and it's kind of like a sled. So that would answer Carlos's question, is how do you do that? So you could take your fin, Carlos, and just, you know, make the length. Well, I don't even think you need to change the length. You could just make it a really small length and just change the values of the through the wall fin mount. See, I can make it really long. You know, I'm extending it really long inside the rocket, and I can go all the way back here to the engine mount. And if I look at it, so right now I'm looking at it from a top view, and if I look at it from a side view, I expect it to be a line across the rocket. So let me take a look at that. Yep, sure enough, there it is. And if I did it in 3D, well, you can't see it because there's a tube in the way. If I made that tube translucent, I could probably see it. So I'm going to save this right now. Let me give it a name. So I'm going to call this the Sled. So I changed the name to Sled and click OK. So it added it as a fin, and you can see it right there. I'm going to go to my body tube right here. Let me change this to 3D. And let me highlight that sled. You can see this gray thing right there is my sled. Can you see that? Okay, so now the question is, what would happen if we put this in the nose cone? And I think I know what's going to happen is it's going to extend out the outside of the nose cone. So let's go back to my side view. And so I'm going to change, let me edit this. I'm going to change the location of that sled. So here's that sled. Let me go back to the through the wall mount. What I'm trying to do is to try to estimate this length right there between that centering ring there and that centering ring there. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Okay, so I'm going to say about that length. And now I'm going to go back to the General tab, and I'm going to change the location. So I'm going to slide it forward. Okay, again, like the centering rings, it didn't allow me to put it onto the nose cone. So, but I can type in a negative number there. So I'm going to type in a -8 and see what happens. So I'm going to, as soon as I hit my tab key, let's see what happens. Oops, it moved already. So there it goes. So like I expected, the front of the sled sticks out the front of the nose cone. But it did allow me to put it in there. And you can see my fin mass right here because it's made out of G10 fiberglass, so it's pretty heavy. So let me change it to plywood. You can see the mass went way down. And then also it shifted when I did that, and that's because RockSim is trying to, remember there's this little tiny sliver of fin, and RockSim is trying to match that to the curvature of the nose cone. So if we take the slider again and we move it, you can see it is sliding. This point right there is attached to the front of the nose, or to the nose cone surface. But in general, you know, you can kind of fudge it there. So now if I put it to the front centering ring and I do my tab length again and make the tab length longer to get it to that centering ring there in the back. and click OK. So there's that fin, which is now my sled. Let's look at it in 3D. Oops, let me rotate this around. I'm rotating it around with my mouse so you can see it. So it's this black plate. And if I change the color of that, make it the 3D color red, you'll see it easier. There you go. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. So that's like, that's a win for today. So that should answer Mark Sell's question. And also Carlos Kaminsky's question. He also has a couple of other questions, but let me see if there's more questions over here in the chat. Aviator TV says, hi, I'm a rocket lifer. Cool. So are we. I've been doing rockets since 1976. That's kind of like when I was first exposed to it. I was about 11 years old at the time. Stuart McNabb is here. Good morning, everyone. Joe Noble says, doesn't it still have the weight of the second engine? I think Joe Noble's talking about our dual deployment. I think he's talking about the weight of the second parachute. And the answer to his question is yes, it still does have the weight of the second parachute. Because we remember when we did our dual deployment simplification, we just changed the drogue parachute to a no event. But the weight is still there. So yes, Joe, you are correct. Technically, you would have to delete the parachute. But in all practical purposes, it's probably not going to change the simulation that much. That weight of that small parachute, it's probably going to be, less than 30 or 40 grams. On a big, heavy rocket, probably not going to change much. If the drogue had significant size, yes, you'd probably want to delete the parachute. So in that case, what I would do is to save the design with a new name, because you're going to delete the parachute, so that you keep your old file intact with the drogue parachute there. So that's probably how you can handle it. Ashley Carrier, ooh, I have to go add that to my shopping cart later. I think she's talking about the Zephyr Jr. Tim, please reshare your screen. I think I am resharing my screen. Anyone in here make igniters? I do. If you want to make your own igniters, go to the Apogee website. Go here to shop. Go here to rocket motors. And then scroll down to motor starters right here. And what you're looking for is our dips. We have a bunch of dips for your igniters. It's in the next page. So on page 2 here. Okay, right here. So we have a bunch of different versions, 4, 5, 6 versions. We have with the quick dip. Quick dip, I would recommend for just composite motors and for dipping Estes motors, Estes igniters in them. The H3 compound dip is for E-match chips. So if you can buy the chips separately, and we do sell them separately. And then the E-match starter set has the chips plus another compound that's similar to the H3 compound. The difference is the H3 compound can be reconstituted later. So if if you're not dipping all your igniters at one time, you can reconstitute the dip later by adding more acetone to it to make it back into a slurry. Where the E-match starter set, that dip, once you mix it, you have to use all of it at the same time. The hot shot dip is the easiest way to make igniters. So basically you can take a just a wire, 2-wire strand, and they're insulated. You cut off the insulation so you just have 2 bare wires, and you can just dip that into the hot shot dip. Because the hot shot dip is conductive, so it completes the circuit right there, and that gives you, basically we call it a reloadable igniter. So you can dip it, fire your rocket, take those same wires, dip them again, fire the next one. You're just reloading the same wires, which is really cool. So if you go out to a launch and you go out to the garbage can out there by the launch pads, and there's all kinds of wire there, and you just grab it and you got your own free igniters, and you can just dip it in the hot shot dip. And then we have Procast. Procast is the hottest burning igniter dip. This is the only one that we have with a warning saying don't use too much, because if you use too much, you could actually blow your rocket motor, overpressurize it, and burst the motor without igniting it. So it comes with a warning. But it's really good for igniting air start motors, especially the smaller diameter ones. And if you go to the igniter pages, any one of these pages, like the quick dip, it will, if you come down here, you know, there's some videos you can watch. And I think there used to be a frequently asked question on how to make your own igniters, but somewhere on our website there's information. So that answers Will Himka's question. Anyone here to make igniters? Joseph Dunning says, can you move the sled down away from the center line? So we're going back to this one right here. So basically right now it's cutting the tube into 2, and what Joseph Dunning is asking is, can we move it off of the center line? And I think we can, but now we're getting even more complicated, and I'm going to have to take a drink of water here because we're going to go deep. Okay, so here's our sled. Let's try. Okay. So we're gonna do it as, we're gonna attach that sled as a pod. I love the pod feature, and the pod feature is probably one of the complex features in RockSim. It's a placeholder where you can attach other parts, but the neat thing about it is you can attach it to the outside of the tube, and once it's on the outside, we have more adjustment of the position of the pod. So a placeholder is like the sustainer right here. This is a placeholder, and it is where all the other parts are attached. Other placeholders in RockSim are multiple stages. Like if I come over here and I change this to a 2-stage rocket or a 3-stage rocket, I will get more placeholders. See, now I got a booster placeholder, and I have the sustainer placeholder. Other placeholders are the pod, and then the final one is a subassembly right here. The difference between a pod and a subassembly is a pod is on the outside, subassembly is on the inside. Subassemblies are used for things like engine mounts. If you want to take an engine mount that you designed, which is a tube with centering rings, and you might have an engine block in there and an engine hook, and you're lazy and you just want to move it from one design to another, that would be a good place for it. An eBay is also where you could do it, but we're going to use a pod. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to change it back to a single stage rocket. So the number of stages back to a single stage. And then I come back here to design components. And my booster stage is now gone. So it is no longer attached here. But my sled is still here. So first I want to create a pod, and I'm going to attach the pod to that body tube right there. So I'm going to click pod. So now we got the pod, and you can see this little icon right there is the forward attachment point of that pod. And I'm just going to leave it alone for right now and click OK. Now I want to take this sled and attach it to the pod. So now remember, this sled is actually a fin, which is on the outside of the rocket. So I'm going to do a copy and paste it to the pod. So again, I showed you before, right click on the sled, choose copy. It copied it, and I'm going to come here to the pod and do a paste. Okay, and you can see now it pasted that sled to the pod. So now we have our new sled here, and this grayed out one is our old one. So I'm going to take the old one and I'm going to delete it. So I can delete it in several ways. I can just come over here to delete, or I can do the right click again and select delete. And it's always going to ask you, do you really want to delete it? And there it is right there. I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now we have this sled right there. Let me go back to 2D. Okay. All right, so now let's see if we can adjust the position. And we can adjust the position using the pod. So remember, we had that pod, and it brought up this screen before. So there's the pod. And let's look at it from the base view of the rocket. Somebody's texting me. I got to turn off my phone. All right, so I believe this rectangle right there where my cursor is the sled, and we want to move that off to the side. So let's go to the radial position tab and uncheck both of these. By default, these are checked. And now let's move this. No, that didn't, radial distance didn't help us because that's moving it out from the there. And I don't know, 2 inches. So now let's try the radial angle. Okay, so you see what happened there? It did move the sled, but now it's just sliced at a different angle. So we didn't really fix anything, but now we can go to the fin itself and adjust the fin itself, which is our sled. So I'm going to click OK there. I'm going to go here to my pod, and now I'm going to edit the sled. And it brings up the sled, and here is the sled. And I'm going to go to the radial position tab. And now I'm going to adjust here. Look at that, I did it. I always love it when something good comes together. This is 2 big wins today for me. Okay, I'm trying to make it make it look straight. Okay, but now it's hanging outside the tube again. So now I got to go through the wall mount, and I got to change the tab depth. So if I change the tab depth, I can move it up. There we go. So now the unfortunate thing is right here, I can't change the location of that part. Maybe I can. Let's go back to the pod. So I zoomed in so I can see it. And let's go back to the radial position. And oh no, it's not working. Unfortunately, when I change the radial position there, it's moving it towards the center. So I was trying to get it inside of the outside ring. So I believe where my cursor here, that's the inside wall of the body tube. So I guess you just have to play with these values here, the radial distance and the radial angle. This is some pretty advanced stuff. This is probably some of the more advanced stuff that we've ever done here in our RockSim live trainings. But it does show you if you have a little ingenuity and you know the way parts work, you can change things around. All right, so let's go back here. And we got a whole bunch of comments that just came in, so I got to scroll down. Gary Martinez says, you really need to make your posters available for sale. My students would love to have them in our lab. And the answer, Gary, is yes, we are making posters available. I don't know if they're turned on our website yet. We're starting with a few of the posters first. I know we're doing the Saturn V or the Saturn 1B, which is behind me. We're doing the flying machine first and the X-15. We're doing 4 of them first. We're kind of adding them slow, seeing what people want to do. But if you go to the Apogee website, you go to shop, and it might be under Rocket Novelties and Gifts, where they would start to show up. So right now we have a model rocket poster here. This is the cutaway view. This would be good for your school wall. But we'll be throwing, that's where you'll find the posters. They're coming soon. In fact, we've started printing them out, but now we just have to get them back on our website. Okay, for dual deployment, my rocket has a small bag that holds the main chute that is connected to the drogue chute. Is that right? This is from Bryce Dwell. Can you guys design a model SpaceX Starship kit? And the answer, Bryce, is complicated. I was thinking about it there. Can you design a SpaceX Starship model rocket kit? And the answer is, right now, Estes has the rights to create SpaceX rockets. We don't have, because it's a private rocket. It's not a publicly funded rocket like a Saturn 1B. And because of that, SpaceX owns the rights, like Boeing would own the rights to, a 747. And then if Revell wanted to make a Boeing 747, they would need to get permission. So we don't have that, so it's not going to be an Apogee product anytime soon, unfortunately. It would be cool, though, wouldn't it? How about a RockSim file for the New Way 2x4? You guys are asking hard questions. A 2x4. So for people that don't know, what is a 2x4? 2x4. Okay, so here is the New Way 2x4 rocket kit. And you can see it is a square rocket. The easy way to do it would be, you can't model the nose cone. And that's the problem. We can't model a nose cone that is pyramid shaped. The body tube, using pods, it might be possible to make a square body, but it's the nose cone that's the problem. So what I would do, Mark, in that case is to cheat. Just make it a round rocket so you can run your simulations. I mean, that's the whole purpose of RockSim anyway, is to run simulations to see how the rocket is going to perform. Making a pretty picture, the best way to make a pretty picture is to use CAD software. In CAD, you could definitely do something like that. Let's see, so we don't even have a RockSim file for the 2x4, but I would cheat. I would take the dimensions here at the top, So it has a diameter, which is probably a side. That's 1.33 inches. And then just find the closest tube to that and then model that in RockSim. So that would probably be 1.3, that would probably be a BT55. I'm just doing that off the top of my head. Isaac Oliver asked, is this free? And I think he's talking about RockSim. And we answered that question at the very beginning. If you go to RockSim, you go to Shop, you go to Rocket Software, you go to RockSim, and you will notice that it is not free. But there is a free demo. And if you scroll down a little bit further, you download the free demo 30-day trial version. Isaac Oliver also asked, how hard is it to build a fiberglass kit? And the answer to that one, Oliver, is really easy. Like you could take this katana rocket right here. And you can convert all the components into fiberglass. So you would go to the nose cone, edit the material. Instead of being polystyrene, you would come down and find fiberglass, like right here. And what happens is you change the nose cone material. Watch the weight of the component here. You can see it jumped up because fiberglass is a lot heavier than polypropylene. So that's how you would do it. You would just go through all the components and change the material on all the components to fiberglass. So it's actually pretty easy. It's just time consuming. One Me Leon is from Bangladesh. It's a country that you have not heard of before. Yes, I have heard of Bangladesh, but we have never heard of anybody from Bangladesh actually coming to our RockSim Live. So great, welcome. You are very welcome here. It's so cool. This is becoming an international event. And I had one more question from Carlos Kaminsky. He wants to add streamers. He didn't know how to add streamers, shock cord, and wadding to a rocket. So let me close this out. Save your changes. No, I'm going to open up a new rocket design. So I'm going to come here to File, Open. And I want to find something small. So I'm looking for a small rocket, and I'm going to choose the blue streak. Click Open. And it's asking me, do I want to save this one right here? I'll say yes, because I know that one's saved on my desktop. So Carlos Kaminsky also asked, how do you add streamer, shock cord, and wadding into RockSim? Are they components? Streamer is definitely a component. So if you had it on your body tube, you can see the S stands for streamer. But over here on the components, there is a button here to add streamers. So you would click, so if I wanted to add a new streamer, I would click on that button. It brings up the database of all the current streamers that are in our database. You can select one from there, click Add It, and it added that new streamer. It's also blue, so it's kind of hard to tell it apart from the other one. So you would probably change the color. Change it to red. New thing here, before streamers didn't show up as a 3D color. But starting now, you want to change that because when you get into our launch visualizer, they will show up as the color that you make them. So I'm going to make this a red streamer so it shows up red. And click OK. I'm going to change the location. I'm going to move that location up here towards the front. Click OK. I'm going to delete this other streamer. So I only have one inside of here. Okay, so that's how you add a streamer. Kevlar and shock cords and wadding will be added as mass objects because the shape doesn't have a defined shape. You know, it's like you take a string and you crumple it up. What kind of shape is that? So what you would do is you would add it as a mass object. So come over here. First you have to where are you going to put it? I'm going to put it in the body tube. I'm going to come over here to Mass Object, click on that, and it brings up the database. I'm going to say cancel out of that, and you will notice there's this drop down here called classification. Anything can be a mass object. A shock cord could be a mass object under the general classification, but if you select this, you'll see that there is a classification specifically for shock cords as a mass object. So if you select shock cord, now you'll notice there's a material selector and a length and a location that popped up. So then I can select my material and I can say, okay, make this one, I'm looking for flat elastic or flat rubber. Like an Estes kit would be a flat rubber. And then you change the length and you'll see that the mass changes as you change the length. So as I make my shock cord longer, it's changing that mass. And then you just adjust the location. And there's my shock cord. And you'd probably want to change this to shock cord. But I've already got one in the rocket, which is this first one. So I'm going to cancel that. Save your changes? No. Okay, so see, I already had a Kevlar shock cord mass right there, which is that one. And then wadding would also be as a mass object. So I would go up here. You know, typically for a sheet of paper wadding, I wouldn't even worry about it. But if you're using a reusable wadding like a Nomex heat shield, yeah, you might want to put the weight in. So I would cancel out of that. Now you could actually add a Nomex heat shield into here. And let me see if there's one in here already. We've got a lot of different items in here. Retainers. I'm not seeing one right away. We'll add it. So we'll click cancel out of that. And we're going to say this is Nomex wadding. And I'm going to give it a mass. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. I'll call it 15 grams. So right now it's right there. And I'm going to slide it back. I'm going to move it behind my streamer and my shock cord. There's my Nomex. And I'm going to go here to the database. And you can make up a part number, make up a description. Let's call it a Nomex heat shield. And you know, you might give a description like, 6 inches by 6 inches. Well, that wouldn't fit in this rocket. 3 inch by 3 inch. And then you can save it to the database and click OK. And so the next time you go to the database, oops, I don't want that. I clicked on the wrong button. You would scroll down here, find custom. Here's custom. Here's the Nomex heat shield. So you could actually add wadding and heat shields into your database so that you wouldn't have to, measure them every single time. Okay, so let's click OK. I want to save this to my desktop. So I'm going to do File, Save As, because I want to show you one other thing before we close here, and we're like a minute away. My poster I'm going to give away is going to go to Mark Sell for the question on moving that eBay sled inside the nose cone. That was a pretty good question. It made my day. So Mark Sell, make sure you contact us so that we can send you the poster that you can't see right now that's behind me. But I want to do one thing real quick here. I want to show you one other thing. And I need to open up a new browser. And I'm going to do this in Google Chrome. And then I need to come over here. I need to change this. Okay, so I want to show you our new launch visualizer. This is online right now, and we have started beta testing. And I would like you to consider being a beta tester for us. So as a beta tester, you can try it out and see if everything's working and give us feedback. And giving us feedback, for me, is the most important part, because we can't make it better if we don't know what needs to be fixed. So I'm going to log in. So I already got an account made. If you've got an Apogee account, that means have you bought things from Apogee before? So like if you bought RockSim, you have an Apogee account, and you can log in using your Apogee account, or you can create a new sign-in. And so I'm just going to sign in, and it's loading a rocket right now. Right now, by default, it chooses the Avion, but I'm going to upload a new rocket design, and I'm going to browse that RockSim design. Go to my desktop, find that blue streak that I just made, open it, I'm going to give it a name, blue streak. You can add textures. What's a texture? A texture is a decal that's like on the side of your rocket. We've covered that before in previous RockSim Live, so go to our RockSim Live archive and we'll go to that video to show you how to do decals, because you can apply them to your rocket. And I'm going to upload it into my storage location, and it says it was successfully uploaded, and now it is reloading my design, and it put it on the launch pad. And this is a 3D model, and right now it's just kind of generic. Until we select a launch site. So I clicked on the launch site button. I'm just showing you how to go about creating a simulation in the visualizer. So I'm going to choose a launch site from the database, and what we tried to do is to put in all the NAR sections and the Tripoli sections. So I'm going to choose this one and just grab it, doesn't matter to me. And it's going to reload the map of where this launch site is, and kind of give you an idea where it is. I don't want to spend too much time looking at it, but right now the launch site is right along the road, and we don't want to be launching from the road, so I need to move this red dot to somewhere else where it would be more appropriate. So you just double click, and it moved the launch site to right there, and then there's a button down here that says confirm launch site. So now when I launch the rocket, I will be launching from right there. And for reference, there's some ponds right there. And it put in all the latitude and longitude coordinates of that launch site. So now we're going to change the starting state. And if you look at our launch site over here, north, let me readjust this so north is straight up. So I got a nice landing zone to the south, southeast. So I want to angle my rocket to the southeast, or the southwest, I'm sorry. Southwest, somewhere that direction, but I got to angle it, and I'll just grab the angle slider right here. So now my rocket is angled towards the southwest. My wind direction right now is coming out of the west. This is kind of like just how you would actually launch a rocket, when you're going out and taking it onto a launch pad. You want to angle it one direction, and you want to feel which way the wind is coming. And then you would set your weather conditions, and I can set mine to end the simulation when the rocket hits the ground. If you're not logged in, and if you don't have a gold membership, you can't see the rocket coming back down to the ground. It will always force you to end the simulation at Apogee. And then to get the gold membership, you got to give feedback. If there's no feedback, no gold membership for you. And what we're going to do is the gold membership is for people that give us feedback. I'll automatically upgrade you if your feedback is good. If it's just doing it to say, this is cool, Tim, That's not really good feedback. We need feedback that will help us make the product better. And if you give that kind of feedback, I'll upgrade you to a gold membership. This is a temporary gold membership, because at the end of the beta testing period, which is going to be, fall of this year, we're going to wipe those clean, all the gold memberships, and then we're going to start over. And then it's a subscription service. But to get a lot of these fields you won't be able to adjust unless you have gold membership. So I'm kind of warning you right now. So this is the big one right here, seeing the rocket where it actually lands. Because running the simulation, seeing it go up in the air, well, yeah, that's cool. But seeing where it lands, that's important. There's a difference between cool and important. So now I need to choose a rocket motor. So I'm going to choose an engine. This is just like RockSim, just like how you choose an engine in RockSim. So you can choose like an Estes C6, and you can choose a C67. And you have an engine overhang down here, just like you do in RockSim. So this is very similar to RockSim. And then you have flight events. It's not showing any flight event for me. I should be seeing the streamer right here. Oh man, there's no flight event. So what's going to happen is, because there's no streamer in this rocket, it's going to crash. So down here in the corner is the launch button. So we just click launch, and you can add a comment. And I'm not going to add a comment, so I'm just going to simulate it. And it ran the simulation, and it put the rocket on the launch pad. And now, if we zoom out, we should see those ponds a little bit to the east of our rocket. See, there's those ponds, and we need to adjust our orientation. And right now the rocket is coming, it's going to fly this direction towards the bottom of the screen. And I'm just adjusting my view here. And I'm going to change the view here to a trajectory view, which is this one right here. All these features are available to you, so you can try these out. So now the rocket's going to land somewhere over in this area, and I expect it, because it doesn't have a streamer in it, to smuck into the ground pretty hard. So I'm going to hit the launch button down here to start the animation. And you can see the rocket has taken off, and I can zoom in, and the rocket's going too fast for me. See that smoke? Smoke is somewhere. If I pause it right here, you can see there's no rocket up there. Well, yes, there is. It's just so small you can't see it. So you click over here on the Find the Rocket in the Sky button, and that centers the rocket right in the exact middle of the screen. And then once it's in the exact middle, then I find, using the plus minus buttons, I can zoom in on it. And it will find that rocket for me. See, there it is. There's my rocket. It's coasting upwards. And it's the same view that you see down here in the mini view. And let me zoom out so we can see the entire trajectory. And let me rotate this around so you can see, yep, we are arcing over into that landing zone area. And I'm going to continue the simulation here. The rocket's going over the top, and it should be coming down. The question is it coming down under a streamer or not? So I'm going to pause it again, find the rocket, zoom in. Oh, sure enough, there is a streamer. And remember, we made that streamer red. That's why you want to make all your components the right color, because they're going to show up here in the launch visualizer. This cone right here that you see on the screen, if you're new to this, this cone right here is, ooh, there's some mountains in front of us now, is called the weathercocking cone. And what the weathercocking cone, it gives us an indication of, is the rocket weathercocking too much? Is the rocket going more sideways than up? And we always want to go up because that's the safest direction. And we want the highest point in the flight, called the apogee point. We want that point to be inside of the cone. And if it's inside the cone, the dot will be green. If we're outside the cone, it's red. So we got a red dot here, which means that our rocket has weathercocked too much. So this is would be kind of an unsafe flight. Not the best flight. I'm kind of probably giving you vertigo here. So I'm going to recenter it. And then I'm going to drag the slider just like we did in the 2D flight profile, but now we're in the flight visualizer, the launch visualizer, and it's going to show us where the rocket is going to land. And it landed right there, and then we can zoom in, and if we hit center the rocket, you can see where we land. Oh, looks like we landed right on the road right there, somebody's driveway, or kind of a dirt road. So this visualizer is available, and if you go to the Apogee website, let me open up a new browser window, and you go to the Apogee homepage, and you're going to see these banner bars here at the top, and you scroll through them. Right here it says beta testers wanted, and you click on that, and it will take you to our beta testers wanted web page, which gives you instructions on how to apply to be a beta tester. And when you apply to be a beta tester, then I'll send you the link to the web page where you can start playing right now. This is available right now. We are in beta testing, but hopefully all the features are working there for you to try out. The only feature that we know that's currently not working is the payment feature. So it's free right now, but to get to that gold member status where normally you would pay, I will upgrade you if you give us good feedback on how to make the visualizer better, particularly what's broken, what needs to be fixed, what's confusing. New features, at this point, we're probably not going to add any new features. We want to get this out the door as quickly as possible. So how to apply? You would go to the contact form, and you would choose RockSim Beta as where to send the email to. So if you don't choose RockSim Beta and it goes to one of their other email addresses, I figure you're not going to get the link because I'm not going to see it and I'm not going to reply to it. We need people that can follow directions because we need feedback, and that's the current direction that I want you to do. And then if you scroll down, it'll tell you about the limitations of the visualizer, and I've kind of already explained them. Until you're logged in and a gold member, a lot of things are going to be disabled, and you're going to see a little lock icon that you can't get past unless you've been upgraded. And so there's 3 levels. There's the free level where you're not logged in, and then there's a free level where you're logged in. And when you log in, what it does is it gives you memory space on our server so that you can upload your RockSim files. So if you don't have memory space, obviously you can't upload a RockSim file. So that's why we require you to log in to do that. It'll still be free, and you can use most of the features, but you won't be able to angle the launch rod or see the rocket where it lands, and big things like that, big features. And so that is the gold membership. And for that, I need to upgrade you. And then finally down here is kind of like how to run a simple simulation, kind of like what I've already gone and done just here in the last few minutes. And we are way long right now, so I need to stop. So again, we do need beta testers for the launch visualizer. So if you have RockSim, you can create your designs, upload them, and see them in the launch visualizer, which is like super cool. And you can launch from your own launch site and see where they're going to land. So go ahead and do that. while it's still free, because eventually this is will be a paid subscription service. We got to make money somehow because this cost a fortune to create. Okay, so let me switch screens again. Not the right screen. This one. Okay, so we're going to end the video now. And again, I want to thank you all for coming. And I haven't gone through all the comments recently. So I will go through the comments. And if there's any other additional questions, we'll put those down and we'll do it again next week. We are going to be switching the time of the live version. Instead of being at 12 noon, we're going to switch it to being later in the afternoon because I have a scheduling conflict on Friday mornings now. But it's going to start in a couple weeks. So next week will still be at 10 a.m., and that will be the first Friday in August. But then eventually we're going to change the time. First Friday of August of 2021. So if you're watching this in 2022, we probably have already gone ahead and switched the time, but it's going to be later on Friday afternoon. So I'm kind of giving you a little bit of advanced notice right now. So thanks for coming, and I need to end the stream because we've gone 15 minutes too long already, and I know your time is valuable, and my voice is starting to go anyway. So again, thanks for coming. So go out and launch something, and try to launch Visualizer too. Thanks.